Hello, everybody. And I wish I was talking to you about a happier topic, but I wanted to talk about what's going on with Bungie. I know that you guys haven't seen me put any content up about Destiny in a long time, even though I did play a lot of Final Shape. But it wouldn't feel right to start uploading, whatever I'm in the mood to upload on this channel without talking about this first. So you're going to be watching me going through all of the official information that we know of that has come out on stream and having a discussion with our community about it. So I hope that this is at least a little cathartic, that you can listen to someone talk about it. Maybe it helps you a little bit. I don't know. But it's just really sad all around. And my heart goes out to everyone who lost their jobs over at Bungie. It's never good. So please enjoy the conversation. Seems a little bit weird to say, but I don't know what else to say. So I don't know how to cut to this. Just cut to it. Here's Bella. She'll make you feel better. Hi, this is Editing Watts here. Before we get into the stream that was recorded yesterday, I do want to just put a bit of attention on Paul Tassie's latest article. I don't think there's a ton of super new stuff in here that changes what we were talking about in the stream, but I will say, and I kind of talk about it a little bit in the video you're about to watch, but the future of Destiny plans doesn't sound too bad, to be honest. Like, reading all of this stuff makes me feel like it's genuinely not that bad. Like, having larger content packs that have a new destination raid and campaign, they're just a little bit smaller and you're getting them every 6 months. We're getting more focus on replayable activities. I've always said that Bungie makes things like the Menagerie or the Coil in here, and they just don't use it anymore. And I never really understood why, because I always felt like that content, take Menagerie, for example, you could add another room to the Menagerie. You could add more loot to the Menagerie. You could add more loot to the Coil. You could add more rooms. You can also do that with Onslaught. You could add a different map. You could add more weapons to it. I feel like there's something there to recreate the stuff that Bungie has made that's really good, make it replayable, and just continue adding to it. And I hope that they end up doing that. There is some more information in here about like gummy bears, for example. People seem to think that it is pretty promising, which makes sense why Sony decided to pick it up and continue making that. And a little bit more information about why Destiny 3 wasn't made. So Destiny 3 was considered too big of a risk in the current market, so they wanted to split up Destiny into different things. And listen, I get it. Destiny seems like a really hard game to make because you got PvP, PvE, you've got Gambit, which is both. There's just so much going on that splitting it up into PvE is D2, Payback is an adventure game, mobile Destiny game, separate 3v3 Crucible game. Like, this makes sense, but obviously this ended up not happening, unfortunately. Seems like a lot of this would have actually been pretty cool. So I just wanted to put this out because there is a bit more information in here. I don't think it really changes much about our conversation that you're about to hear, but just to give you all of the current news before I upload this, this is where we're at right now. So what we know about what happened, obviously we had the DCP podcast on Thursday, and there was a good amount of information at that point about what was going on, but a lot more has come out since then. So to catch you up with what was happening, we learned that there were 220 people from Bungie that straight up lost their jobs. 155 were moved to various different Sony studios. And then 40 is what Jason Schreier said. 40 people are moving to make a brand new studio under Sony to keep making a game that they've been working on. I don't know how long they've been working on it for, but they are going to be able to continue making that game as a Sony studio. Probably the best case out of all of this. As long as they like the game, I hope that they like the game they're working on. I hope the contract is good, but like, seeing what's happening with Bungie right now, it feels like maybe it was a golden lifeboat that those folks got out on, because they're going to be able to continue making the game that they've been, hopefully, again, enjoying making, and hopefully they have good contracts, and they get to make a brand new studio and continue making that game. So I wish them the best of luck. I wish everyone the best of luck. A lot of people are now without a job entirely. So this is the article from Jason Schreier. We already went into that 220 people were laid off on Wednesday. They include top executives, player support, narrative, audio, a lot of people. This week, to learn more about what happened and what comes next, I spoke to 10 current and former Bungie employees who asked not to be identified because they were not authorized to speak to the press. They described the company that grew too fast and tried to develop too many projects at once, spreading resources too thin rather than prioritizing its chief moneymaker, Destiny 2. And that's certainly what it seems like, right? And a lot of companies did this. They had a big boom in COVID and they were like, we can maintain this growth forever because that's how things work. And then they just ended up spending a bunch of money that they couldn't keep up with. And that is absolutely what happened here. We know that they were making Destiny, obviously. We know that they're making Marathon. We know that they're making Gummy Bears. We also are going to learn about a new project called Payback in this article. We know that they were making Matter. That's 5. So we're already at 5 games. When this is a studio who makes 1 game. That's crazy. And I know they hired a lot of people to do that. It wasn't just taking people off of Destiny, but like that is so fast. Like your workforce needs to get used to it. You know, your company needs to get used to it. Like one at a time. And the unfortunate thing with all of this is like this bet that the higher ups, the C-suite, the executives made could have paid off, right? And we could be sitting here having Marathon and Destiny and Gummy Bears is out and we've got like Matter here. We got everything could have popped off and everything could have been fantastic and Bungie is in the best situation that they've ever been in their entire life and things are magical and fantastic. But that is not what happened and that bet did not pay off and it is the people who are making the games that end up paying the price, not the people who made the bets that didn't pay off. And that's what always really pisses me off is that it's very, very rich people gambling with people's money who are just trying to survive every day, you know? So he spoke with 10 current and former Bungie employees. Most of the people were critical of Chief Executive Officer Pete Parsons, saying he had failed to take accountability for his own bad bets and that he'd been overly optimistic in his communication with the staff. Some said Parsons and other company leaders spoke of Bungie magic, a confident mantra similar to ones preached by other elite video game studios that they can make anything work out. Dude, we hear this all the time. We've heard this from so many studios where they're like, I don't know how it works out. It just works. Bungie magic, BioWare magic, arcade magic. We hear it all the time. Instead of just having like smart business decisions that make sense and like very, very slowly expanding their company, they rely on magic. That's what I'm saying, Vero. Yeah, you're like, we have this massive boom, right? We have this massive boom. Let's use this money to hire some more people and let's get Marathon out. Let's get Marathon out and making money. Because even that is going to be challenging because you are making 2 live service games, both that need support constantly. That's going to be difficult in itself. But I mean, part of this could have been they needed to sell to Sony, right? They had to, otherwise they were going to go under. There was going to be no Bungie if they didn't sell to Sony, potentially. And they were like, look, Sony, we're making like 6 live service games over here. Come on. And we'll help you with your live service games. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good bet either way. So Bungie first released Destiny in 2014 in partnership with Activision Blizzard under a contract that called for the developers to release a new product every year. Full games alternating with expansions. But the schedule proved untenable for Bungie, which cut ties with Activision in 2019, largely so it could continue updating Destiny 2 rather than starting from scratch with another sequel. See, the whole Destiny 3 thing, man, it was never gonna happen. Because starting from scratch all over again and attempting to make it good is difficult. Since then, Bungie has transformed Destiny 2 into a live service game, updating it with new content and regular expansions. In early 2022, during an era of low interest rates and strong post-COVID sales across the industry, Sony purchased Bungie for $3.6 billion. looking at Destiny 2 as a model for its growing ambitions in live service games. Flushed with cash, Bungie hired hundreds of new staff members and pursues a myriad of incubation projects, including mobile versions of Destiny, remakes of old games, and new franchises. But the following year, as the industry's pandemic surge slackened, Bungie grappled with several problems. An expansion called Lightfall failed to impress fans, while Marathon, an extraction shooter game that was well into development, struggled to coalesce. Meanwhile, the next Destiny 2 expansion called The Final Shape was also floundering and needed more time to come together. It is everything going wrong all at once. I mean, I guess there could be another world where Marathon ends up being a banger. It comes out, last year or this year, it makes a ton of money and they're chilling. Lightfall sold really well, but it didn't have what it needed to keep people playing. I really like Strand, but yeah. During one grim meeting in late 2023, according to the people familiar, Parsons told staff that the company has missed its revenue targets by 45% and was losing money. So not only did they miss the targets by 45%, but it was in the red. And we knew that from the little article post that Pete Parsons put up. He said that they've been operating in the red. But like, this 45% target doesn't necessarily mean that Destiny was doing bad. It's the typical thing of like, we made $7 trillion, but we said we were going to make $20 trillion, so we've missed our targets. When in actuality, if you had a more realistic business plan, realistic targets, you wouldn't have missed the targets by 45%. It's unrealistic goals 100%. Unrealistic goals 100%. Live service games are so expensive, and you have to think about a game like Destiny, even compared to a game like World of Warcraft, right? Like, you making content for WoW, I assume, is cheaper than making content for Destiny in terms of like cutscenes and all of that stuff. No matter what we think about Destiny's content and whether you want to play it a lot, like, their world design is top notch. They have the one of the best feeling, I personally would say, the best feeling shooting in the entire industry. You've got industry leading people in art, world design, music, sandbox. You have so many incredible people. And you know what? A lot of those people, those 220 people, maybe even the 155, are not going to want to work in the gaming industry anymore. They're like, this is not feasible. I'm going to go work for Amazon and make like 2 times as much than what I was making video games. Which is really sad, because they're obviously very talented people, and some of those will just straight up be lost and they won't be in the industry anymore. Bungie delayed The Final Shape and Marathon and subsequently laid off around 100 employees. Feeling pressure from a parent company seeking increased profitability and facing its own set of challenges, Bungie executives charted a new course. Both Marathon and Destiny 2 received new leadership at Sony as Sony's video game unit replaced its CEO and laid off 900 people. So this can be a little confusing if you read, because this is kind of, if you read it in a certain way, it can sound like Marathon and Destiny got Sony people. Like, they replaced the leadership on those games with Sony's leadership, but that's not what's happening. It's just saying, like, this is what happened. And also, Sony was going through some stuff too. They laid off 900 people and replaced their CEO. TechCrunch article says internally employees were told D2 The Final Shape exceeded. Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, no, it did. The Final Shape did incredibly. The Final Shape, there is nothing The Final Shape could have done to save people's jobs. There was a thread by Robert, who was laid off with this recent layoff, saying that I would love to just make a game company where we just want to make like good games and we want to be comfortable with where we're at and not have to constantly work towards making more and more and more money. And we want to make enough money to be able to pay our people, and we're just going to chill making good games and not trying to make the money go up all the time, which is easier said than done, of course. But having constant growth is just so unrealistic. Even if every single person on the planet played Destiny, there's still an end to the amount of people that can keep playing Destiny. Well, the whole vintage car thing, it's like, we need to have a conversation of how much CEOs make, you know? Because he's just using the money that he gets paid to buy those cars. He's not taking money away from, I don't know, Jonathan Bungie, the man. He's not taking money out of his hands and going to buy cars with it. He is he's using the money he gets paid. Does he make too much? That's a different conversation. And I would say probably most CEOs make way too much money because they're taking the risks. But it's like, is it really a risk? Is it really a risk if you never get held accountable and then when you finally leave, you get to leave with like $50 million? I don't know. It doesn't seem to ever be like, you bet on this company. You messed up. You're getting out of here and you're going to have just like the money that, you've made, but we're not giving you any extra money. It just never works like that. Earlier this year, Sony Interactive Entertainment chairman Hiroki Totoki publicly criticized Bungie, saying he wanted to see more accountability. Employees were hopeful that the extra time on the final shape would lead to a great product, and the expansion received rave reviews, but the critical acclaim had little impact on the deeper cuts that were already in the works at Bungie, as GameFile's Stephen Totillo reported on Thursday. In a blog post announcing the layoffs this week, Parsons acknowledged that the company had grown too much, we were overly ambitious, our financial safety margins were subsequently exceeded, and we began running in the red. One of Bungie's big bets was Payback. So this is where the conversation about both Luke and Mark is going to come in. One of Bungie's big bets was Payback, an incubation project set in the Destiny universe that would shake up the formula in major ways. According to the people familiar, it would pivot from a first-person to a third-person perspective and allow players to use the franchise's characters to explore a large world while cooperating to battle monsters and solve puzzles. The pitch took elements from popular games such as Warframe and Genshin Impact. So I would guess that what they mean by this is, so if you're playing as Shaxx, Ikora, Zavala, maybe you even get people from way back in history that we haven't even seen in the game, and you probably work towards unlocking those characters similarly to something like Warframe. And then the open world maybe feels like Genshin. I don't think it would be a gacha game. I don't think it would be a gacha game. I think what they're saying is more so like the open world and the exploration and the puzzles that you find are like Genshin, but the way that you work towards unlocking the new characters is like Warframe, not a gacha. And it has been confirmed that Mark Noseworthy and Luke Smith were working on this. Like, this was their thing. I don't mind them trying it either. Like, this could have been good. I don't know. Well, that's because this was in the Destiny universe. So, yeah. Mark and Luke were doing stuff with the Destiny universe. I assume they were also going to be in control of, like, talking to people about a TV show, like anything outside of Destiny that involved Destiny would have been Mark and Luke. Okay, let's keep reading. Although several internet rumors over the last few months have suggested that Payback would be a sequel to Destiny 2, it was a significant departure from the previous two games, according to people familiar, and would have been perceived more as a spin-off. But 2 months ago, Bungie canceled Payback to prioritize games that were more imminent, moving the bulk of its team to Marathon, which is targeting a release in 2025. This is my assumption, right? This is my assumption. My assumption is that Mark and Luke were working on things outside of the Destiny universe. TV show is probably not happening. Payback is not happening. That was canceled. So more than likely, they just didn't have anywhere to put Luke and Mark. Maybe it was a situation of them saying, like, do you want to come back and work on Destiny? And they were like, no. Could even be a case of like when big purchases happen of companies, and we know that like half of the money that Sony spent buying Bungie was spent on employee retention, which makes me go, how does that work? With laying off a bunch of people. But if you have someone, so say I purchase your company and you are the director of the Destiny universe. You are in control of the Destiny universe. And then everything that you work on gets canned, doesn't exist anymore. I have to put you in a similar role to being the leader of the Destiny universe, because employees do have protections, right? You don't want a company to buy your company, and you're the leader of the Destiny universe, and then they put you as a janitor. And they're like, if you want your money, you got to stay here. But we're making you a janitor, bitch. You know? Like, there are protections like that when it comes to big purchases of companies. You do not want to be in that kind of situation. So if the Destiny universe no longer exists because they're just making Destiny, and there's no other place that they can put Luke or Mark, of like, then maybe they just get to leave. You know what I'm hoping? I'm hoping they get to leave with like $2 quadrillion and they got to have their payout before like the max amount of time, whenever that is. Yeah, like you would have noticed lots of people buying lots of things. And like, I'm not mad at that, right? If anything, I think that's great. I think that the people who are making the games, who have been at Bungie for like 20 years, managing to get a bunch of money out of a Sony deal, freaking go for it. I've always said, like, I want my favorite devs to be rolling around in Lamborghinis, you know, making a ton of money, because those are the people making the game. So I'm never mad at like an employee who's been there for a long time, worked their way up to be in like a management position or something, and then they end up getting a bunch of money through the company being bought. I don't mind that. They're making the game. They're still making the game. There's still people hard at work making these games, and I do not mind them getting money. I would prefer it to always be like that they get a bunch of money and the CEOs maybe get a little bit less money. Okay, so Payback. Payback was canned 2 months ago. The company also plans to continue updating Destiny 2. So this is our Destiny 2 future news. Although it will no longer pursue regular paid expansions as it did in the past. According to people familiar, during one recent meeting, a company leader told attendees that sales of each expansion declined year over year, including June's The Final Shape. So they'll be moving away from an annual release model. I mean, obviously expansions make a lot of money because it gets a lot of people to come back, but they also take a lot of money and they take a lot of time. So if you're seeing that people are not buying into your yearly expansions, I guess it makes sense to not do it anymore. So we're going to go into what their plans are for Destiny if they're not doing, you know, these yearly expansions. Before we do, I don't know where it was. I probably won't be able to find it, but there was someone who said, I'm seeing all of these reports that Bungie's not going to do any raids anymore or dungeons anymore. And they were like, what do you think the raid and dungeon team is going to be doing? So at least from them, it kind of seems like raids and dungeons are still going to be a thing. If I was to be an assumption-making assumer, I would assume that content is being launched for free, and then instead of having like just a dungeon pass, maybe you have a dungeon and raid pass. Some staff say they're optimistic about the vision for Destiny 2 under new director Tyson Green, a Bungie veteran who took the helm earlier this year. Tyson Green is a great dude. At least, okay, listen. I don't know him that well. I've definitely met him a couple times, even though I've more than likely forgotten. But he's been there for like 20 something years. And from everyone that I've talked to, everyone seems to love Tyson. So he knows a lot about Destiny. He knows a lot about the company. I have no reason to believe that Tyson Green is like a bad pick for this. In the coming months, the people said Bungie will look to retain and attract players with smaller scale content drops modeled after Into the Light. Into the Light was fantastic. It was fantastic. It gets a little bit like when I think about how do you make Into the Light your content? Like that's your content. don't know. I guess, so, I mean, if I think about the best content drops, if you have Into the Light and it's got like that horde mode, new loot, it's got the raid pantheon, because that was a part of Into the Light. Maybe you can add something that's similar to the menagerie. I don't know. It could work out. I did really like Into the Light. I hope it works well. I don't know. Does it work well if you aren't working towards a final shape expansion? I don't know. Because a big part of it was people getting ready for the witness, you know. But it was also fun. It was really fun. Season Pass dungeon keys will still be a thing, and Jeff Grubb said these content packs will still have raids. Yeah, it seems like we have pretty good confirmation that raids are still going to be around. Rather than selling this content, they said, Bungie will aim to release it for free, along with overhauls to activities that it hopes will appeal to hardcore players. So this Into the Light drop, obviously Into the Light was free. These content drops are going to remain free. And then it looks like they're going to be overhauling Crucible, Strikes. Rather than selling the content, they aim to launch it for free. Other vague plans for the future include a storyline that will feature characters and worlds that Destiny has not yet explored. So we do have confirmation that there is a storyline. I do think there's going to be less story overall, though. If our content drops or stuff like this, I feel like it's going to be pretty light on story, and it's going to be more like playable things for us to play. It's going to be stuff that we want to play, but not necessarily like crazy story. But there is still going to be a story. That's just me assuming that there's going to be less story, but and more just like here's stuff for you to play. It doesn't necessarily have a super strong story attached to it. But these will have some stories. Fans have wondered if Bungie might one day start anew with Destiny 3, but such a project has not been in development, according to people familiar. Bungie is instead looking to create a smoother onboarding process for Destiny 2, such as a rebranding to attract new players who might be turned off by a game that can now feel impenetrable. That would be a great idea. That's the best idea I've heard in the last, 5 years. If this content ends up being really good and then people end up paying for dungeons and raid keys, which I'd be happy to pay for a dungeon and raid key. Eververse pops off like crazy. People are really enjoying it. Marathon does really well. Then I think it'll be fine. But it is quite the gamble. Those left at Bungie will now have to make do with a smaller staff, tighter schedules, and a company that looks significantly different than it did 3 days ago. Longtime veterans Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy exited this week, according to people familiar, as did several other top leaders, leaving lingering questions about the future of decision-making at Bungie. Bungie staff who lost their jobs are receiving packages that include at least 3 months of severance and health benefits, said people familiar. But just like last year's layoff, anyone who receives stock from Sony purchase that has not yet been vested will watch it disappear. That really sucks, man. This really sucks. I mean, I'm very glad that they're getting, at least 3 months of benefits. I feel like that's the least that you can do when you lay people off. But losing that stock is rough. Through no fault of your own. No fault of your own. Man, it's a lot. It's a lot. So Mark and Luke are gone. That's because I'm assuming, but from all the information available to me, that it's because all of the stuff that they were working on is not a thing anymore. Destiny is not going to be getting yearly expansions. Destiny is not going to be getting those big yearly expansions. What we do know is that Destiny is going to be getting smaller content drops that are free, similarly to Into the Light. And we know that raids and dungeons still exist. So in terms of hearing that, I actually feel a little bit better. I don't feel totally doom and gloom. I don't think it's good. Don't get me wrong. This is a huge shakeup for Bungie. They have to try and figure out a way to make this content work and this new workflow work. Expansion brought so many people back. Not enough, though. It didn't bring enough people back to make them enough money to warrant making those expansions. They take a really long time to make. They're really expensive. I severely doubt that it undersold Lightfall. Oh, it absolutely did. It makes 100% sense that it undersold Lightfall. Lightfall was coming off of Witch Queen. Witch Queen was incredible. Lightfall was being sold as like a pretty epic thing. And it was also a lot of people outside of the Destiny community were really interested in playing Lightfall. People left Lightfall, and then you had the Final Shape, where there were people who were like, but Lightfall was bad. Why would I play the Final Shape? Lightfall pre-orders were insane. And we know that the Final Shape pre-orders were not very high. They were saying that. They were saying that it was problematic. So, and you also have to think that the Final Shape, so Lightfall was like the expansion leading into the finale of Destiny's 10-year saga. If you're a player who has never played Destiny, you're like, oh, I might get in for Lightfall, and then I'm going to play like all year, and then I can play the finale. That's going to be dope. You're not going to look at it and be like, let me jump in with the Final Shape. The end of a 10-year saga. It's going to be very difficult to get brand new players to play the end of a saga. They'll be like, well, this is clearly not for me. So it did well, and it was incredible. It was an incredible expansion, but it doesn't mean that numbers are going to be any better. Dear God, I hope Marathon does well. Because listen, the thing that sucks, okay, this is my thought. They need to really get used to this new, like having way less people working on Destiny, this entirely new setup for Destiny. And I don't know if they have the right people behind the wheel to do that in terms of like the super higher ups. I believe in Tyson Green. There's people who are at like not the super top level, like C-suite, that are the managers and like people kind of in charge. Joe was one of those people that I believe in them. I believe in them doing that. But man, they don't have player support anymore. They laid off like all of the player support team. And one of the people in the player support team said, hey, did you like what happened in the Final Shape? That's because we were there every day telling them what they need to do to make Final Shape a banger. Sony people involved in Bungie advocated for the devs in ways Bungie's own leadership just wouldn't. That's a silver lining. So if we go here, and as soon as I read 155 people are being moved to Sony studios and 40 people are being moved to a brand new studio, I was like, kind of seems like Sony is doing whatever they can to help the people. Sony seems to be, Sony's not perfect, don't get me wrong. Sony is also a company and they do some really stupid stuff. But it seems like Sony was really trying to impact as little people as possible. All in all, like, dude, I don't know what's going on in there. It still feels like there is a lot of story left about what really happened and what went on. I just hope that all of those 220 people can end up getting work. It's going to be really difficult because people just keep getting laid off all over the place. The people that are working there who are devs on the ground making content, I do believe in them making good content. The free content drops we're going to be getting. The raid and dungeon team is always good, so I'm not like concerned about that. We just need to, those people need to be able to run the show, to be honest. Because it kind of seems like an issue that has been going on with Bungie for a long time has been that they haven't listened to the devs. And then as soon as the devs are able to take over, things go really well. People who are playing the game, people who are playing the game with the community, people who are, doing incredible things. So I really hope it works out. As much as I know people are cheering for Bungie's downfall because they're like, Pete must go. Listen, Pete's going to be fine no matter what. Pete is going to be chilling. Billionaires never, well, I don't know if he's a billionaire. I assume he's a billionaire. But billionaires, leaders of the people in control of these companies never suffer. They always get to keep a ton of money and they leave with a ton of money. If Bungie goes down, it's friggin' fine. But for the people who are working there, the 850 people who are still at Bungie going away is very bad. That would be 850 people without a job. So I really hope those free content drops hit good. I'm sure some of them won't. We're not going to be able to have bangers every single time. And I hope that Marathon is really freaking fun. and it does well, and that Bungie gets to stick around for a while. Because I think it would be a big shame to lose Bungie. Bungie, as a collaboration of so many talented people, create some of the industry leading stuff across the board. It all just really sucks, man.